Welcome, friends, to another riveting 2 chapters of My Teacher is an Alien. Today we'll be reading chapters 17 and 18, so let's get going, because the last time we left off, Susan was staying after class with Mr. Smith. Chapter 17, Teacher Conference. The other kids had left. I was alone with the alien. At least Stacy had lingered at the door for a few minutes, until Mr. Smith turned to her and said, "It's time for you to go, Miss Benoit. I want to speak to Miss Simmons in private." Stacy looked at me with an expression that said I tried. Then she hurried away. Roxholm Smith walked over and straddled the chair in front of my desk. He leaned toward me. "I know what you did today," he said. "Oh," was all I could manage. I felt as if someone had dropped an ice cube into my heart. The worst thing was, I couldn't even be sure what he meant. Did he know I had skipped my piccolo lesson? Or did he know I had been inside his house? I looked at the door and wondered if I would ever go through it as a living person again. "Well?" said Roxholm. "I'm sorry," I whispered. It was about all my voice was good for at that point. It was also just as vague as his first statement. I wasn't about to say what I was sorry for. Roxholm looked at me. "I don't understand why you dislike me so much, Susan," he said. "I'm just trying to do what is right for this class. Yet you've been hostile to me from the moment I walked through the door." What an actor! I wondered if I would ever be that good. It was amazing how he was still pretending to be just a teacher who was having trouble with one of his students. Suddenly he rose and crossed the room to close the door. "Now," he said, sitting in front of me again, "let's be honest with each other. Shall we, Miss Simmons?" Should I say something? Should I tell him I knew his secret? "Why are you here anyway?" I said at last, still playing his game of not saying anything that could be taken at least 2 ways. "I'm here to learn," he said smoothly. "After all, isn't that what school is for?" Creep, I thought, but out loud I said, "I thought you were supposed to be the teacher." I tried to keep my voice from cracking, but it did anyway. Roxholm shifted in his chair. "A good teacher is always learning," he said. "Education is a process of give and take. I have to take certain things in order to learn. Look at all I've taken from this class already. I have taken a lot of nonsense. I've taken a lot of snottiness." Suddenly he turned and looked directly at me. "And I'll have to take a few more things in order to learn all I can, if you take my meaning, Miss Simmons." I shrank back in terror. I don't know how he did it, but I could actually see his alien eyes beneath his mask, as if they were burning a light of their own. "And I won't take kindly to any interference with my educational mission," he said in a voice without any emotion. He had picked up a copy of Rockets and Flags as he talked. Now he began to squeeze it. I watched his fingers sink right into the corner, compressing the paper with the power of his grip. I heard a horrible thumping sound. I glanced around to see where it was coming from, then realized it was the beating of my own heart. "The universe is a very big place, Susan," said Roxholm gently. He dropped the book. His fingers had left dents half an inch deep in the cover. If only I could get the book out of there, I would finally have proof of what he was. But of course, he had no intention of letting me have that book. He picked it up and carried it to his briefcase. "A very big place indeed," he said, "and there are more things going on in it than you can possibly imagine. It's important to learn all we can. Otherwise, terrible things can happen. Terrible things. That's my job, to prevent terrible things. Can you understand that, Miss Simmons?" I shook my head. Maybe I should say I shook my head harder, since I was already shaking all over. He sighed. "Well, perhaps someday you will," he said. "For now, I simply want you to know that it is wisest and safest not to interfere with your elders." He closed his briefcase. "I will see you tomorrow, Miss Simmons," he said. "I trust that you will spend the entire day here in the classroom and not enter my home again." I almost fell out of my chair. He knew. He had known all along. Before I could say anything, he went out the door, leaving me alone. Chapter 18. Concert concerns. It took me almost 20 minutes to get home. I cycled along the sidewalk slowly, watching every corner. I kept expecting aliens to leap out of the bushes and grab me. When something did jump out of the bushes, I screamed so high and so loud I was surprised I didn't break the glass in the street lamp overhead. But it was only Peter. "Are you trying to give me a heart attack?" I asked, straddling my bike and glaring at him. "It would serve you right for bringing Duncan along today," he said. I wasn't up for a fight, and I said so. Peter was mad enough that he might have kept going anyway, but when I started to tell him what happened after school, he got so interested he forgot about being angry. He insisted that I try to remember every word Broxelman said. "Where's Duncan?" I asked when I finished my story. "Hiding in my closet," said Peter with a wicked grin. "We called his folks, and he's going to spend the next couple days at my house." "Did they ask any questions?" Peter laughed. "If you were Duncan's mother, wouldn't you be glad to have him out of the house for a while?" I didn't think that was very nice, but I let it pass. "Will you be able to stand him until it's over?" I asked. "My problem is trying not to take advantage of him," said Peter sadly. "It's not easy. I'd really love to get back at him for some of the things he's done to me, but he's so terrified I don't dare have any fun with him. I really think if I popped a bag near his ear, he would have a heart attack and die." I laughed in spite of myself. "What about your father?" I asked. Peter grimaced. "He won't even notice Duncan is there," he said. "By the way, I took the pictures to the drugstore. We can pick them up after school tomorrow." "If we live that long," I said. "Relax," said Peter. "Broxelman and his friends are here to collect people. I'd be really surprised if they actually kill anyone." That made me feel a little better. But it was only the thought that this whole mess might be over when we got the pictures that kept me from losing my mind that night. Even so, I was so frazzled I couldn't think about anything else. By morning, I was such a wreck that my special session with Mr. Bamwick was a total disaster. "No, no, no," he kept yelling. "It's B flat, Susan. B flat." "Well, I can't get it right if you keep screaming at me," I said, trying not to cry. I couldn't blame poor Mr. Bamwick. The concert was only a day away, and I was getting worse by the minute. But I just couldn't concentrate on the music. How could I, when I knew what else was supposed to happen? Could you play the piccolo? If you knew some of your friends, or maybe even you, were about to be kidnapped by aliens? "Aren't you worried?" I asked Peter that afternoon on the playground. "Not really," he said. His pale face split into a wide grin. "I told you, I've got an alternative plan." "Listen, Peter," I said, taking his arm. "This isn't one of your science fiction books, and you're not Buck Rogers. Don't get carried away." He shook my hand away angrily. "This is the greatest thing that has ever happened in this town," he said, "and don't you forget it, Susan." At that point, Stacy and Mike went running by, yelling bad words at each other. We started to laugh. "I heard Stacy say that her mother is going nuts," said Peter. "I bet Mike's mother is too." I nodded. I almost felt sorry for them. It can't be easy to have a kid who hadn't been in trouble since kindergarten suddenly turn into a maniac. "Of course, Stacy and Mike don't have much choice," I said. "Sure they do," said Peter. "What do you mean by that?" I asked. But he wouldn't answer me. "Just watch," he said. "You'll figure it out soon enough." And friends, that brings us to the end of chapters 17 and 18 of My Teacher is an Alien. The next time you meet with Big Bear, Polly, and Baby Soren and myself, we will finish this book and we will know the conclusion of My Teacher is an Alien. So until then, I'm Mr. Lures. Have a great day, friends, and we'll see you next time.